Most people think living in Europe means expensive rent, expensive food, and an expensive life. But there is one European capital where you can live comfortably, really comfortably, for under $500 a month. And I guarantee it is not the city you are thinking of right now. Europe has 44 countries. Each one has a capital city. And while most people dream about Paris, London, or Amsterdam, those cities will drain your bank account faster than you can say croissant. But tucked away in southeastern Europe is a capital city that almost nobody talks about. A city where your rent is cheaper than a gym membership in New York. That city is Tirana, the capital of Albania. And by the end of this video, you might seriously be considering a move. Let's start with the biggest expense for most people, rent. In Tirana, a modern one-bedroom apartment right in the city center will cost you somewhere between $400 and $600 a month. That is not a typo. $400 in a European capital city, with air conditioning, Wi-Fi, and a view. If you are willing to live just outside the city center, and honestly, Tirana is small enough that outside the center still means everything is walkable, you are looking at $250 to $400 a month. Now compare that to Paris. A one-bedroom in Paris will set you back $1,800 to $2,500 a month minimum. London? Even worse. $2,200 to $3,000 a month for a basic apartment in a decent area. In Tirana, you could rent for an entire year for what 1 month costs you in London. Let that sink in. Now let's talk food, because this is where Tirana gets even more interesting. If you cook at home, your monthly grocery bill will run you about $150 to $250 a month. Fresh vegetables, meat, dairy. Albania produces a lot of its own food, which keeps prices low and quality surprisingly high. But here is where it gets really interesting. Eating out in Tirana is almost unfairly cheap. A full sit-down meal at a local restaurant, not a street stall, an actual restaurant with a menu and a waiter, costs about $5 to $8. A coffee in a nice cafe? About 80 cents to $1.50. For the price of one brunch in London, you could eat out every single day for a week in Tirana. Total monthly food budget, eating out a few times a week and cooking the rest, lands around $200 to $350 a month. Transport in Tirana is almost an afterthought in your budget. A monthly public transport pass costs about $20 to $30. That covers buses across the entire city.
If you prefer taxis, a ride across the city will cost you $2 to $5. Ride-sharing apps work there too and are even cheaper. Most expats and digital nomads living in Tirana say they spend $30 to $50 a month on transport total, and that includes the occasional taxi and weekend trip outside the city. Compare that to London's Oyster card, which runs about $200 a month just for basic zones, or Paris, where transport alone can cost $100 to $150 a month. In Tirana, transport is basically a rounding error in your monthly budget. Now this is the part most people forget to factor in. Healthcare in Albania is affordable, but the public system is basic. Most expats opt for private health insurance, which runs about $50 to $100 a month for solid coverage. Private doctor visits cost $20 to $40 out of pocket. No insurance needed for routine stuff. Internet and phone? About $20 to $30 a month for fast, reliable Wi-Fi, and a local SIM with data. Entertainment, going out, weekend trips, socializing. Budget about $100 to $200 a month, depending on your lifestyle. Tirana has a surprisingly active nightlife and restaurant scene that has exploded in the last few years. So let's add it all up. Rent, $500. Food, $300. Transport, $40. Healthcare and phone, $120. Entertainment and extras, $150. Total, approximately $1,110 a month. That is a full, comfortable, modern life in a European capital city for just over $1,000 a month. Now compare that to the full monthly cost of living in Paris, which averages $3,500 to $4,500 for a single person. Or London, where $4,000 to $5,000 to $500 a month is considered normal. You could live in Tirana for 3 full months for what 1 month in Paris costs you. 3 months. Here is the part that surprises most people. Tirana is not some underdeveloped city frozen in time. It has completely transformed in the last decade. Fast internet, some of the fastest in Europe actually, a growing cafe culture, new restaurants opening every month, a young English-speaking population, and it sits just a short drive from some of the most stunning beaches and mountains in the Balkans. Albania also has no property tax on real estate purchases under a certain threshold, which is why investors and remote workers have been quietly moving there for years. The people who have figured this out are not struggling backpackers. They are remote workers, freelancers, and retirees who looked at a map, did the math, and realized they could live like royalty in Tirana, on a salary that barely covers rent in Berlin. So who is Tirana actually right for? If you are a remote worker earning in dollars or euros, Tirana is a goldmine. Your salary goes 2 to 3 times further instantly. If you are retiring on a pension or savings, this is one of the most financially comfortable places in Europe to stretch that money. If you are a student, freelancer, or just someone tired of watching your paycheck disappear into rent, Tirana gives you your life back. It is not for everyone. The city is still developing. Infrastructure is improving but not perfect. And if you need the prestige of a Paris address or the career network of London, Tirana cannot replace that. But if what you want is a real life, in a real European city, without going broke every single month, Tirana might be the most underrated move you have never considered. So here is what I want to know. Would you actually move to a city like Tirana for this kind of lifestyle and savings? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to see the next cheapest European capitals on this list, because Tirana is not alone, that video is coming next. You do not want to miss it.